Dimp Digital Presents Idle Game Chat.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube absolutely free. This is it. Our Fantasy Gaming League results show. If you've been following us on the socials, you already know the result by now. But I'm here with the two championship contenders to run through the results and reflect on what might have been, if we look at the stats, it's definitely our best ever season. Everyone bought their A game and it was a real upping of the records and whatnot. But before we get into the meat of the show and introduce these two idiots, I've got to let you know, Idle Game Chat can be supported from patreon.com/Idle Game Chat. That's your opportunity to put hand in pocket. So, with that over and done with, I made it shorter because I wanted to get to this. It feels like it's been a brewing sensation for this particular episode, mainly from the Biff camp, because Biff has beaten Paper to become the new Dimp Digital Fantasy Gaming League champion. Biff, I mean, after a season of taunts, how does that make you feel to be holding that belt? Well, you put it in a bag and put it in the corner somewhere, but how did it feel to knock Paper out of his ivory tower there?
Just the sweetest feeling ever. Just, it's right up there. And I had a kid this year, so that tells you how sweet it was.
What in particular made it sweet? Was it just because the taunts that were being thrown out, the comments, the statements, everything like that? Or was it just the glory for yourself to you know, you said you had a kid this year, and this now, you know, when he grows up, he'll see Dada won the belt once. He lost it the next year, but there was a belt there for him. He was a winner at one point.
It's just when you know someone like Piper and you know the amount of shit he talks, it's nice that it all comes to fruition and your point's proven that he does talk a lot of shit. And it's like I'm getting my day in court with the criminal. Do you know what I mean? Like he's in there in the stockades now, and I can stand there and we can point at him and go, "Oi, criminal! We've got our day in court," and that's what the people wanted.
That's exactly what they've got. I mean, commiserations to you, Paper. You certainly talked the talk. Didn't quite walk the walk. I mean, how do you feel now? You're back in the Grand Prix with the Sharks, and they are going to be smelling blood after some of the things you said about them.
Firstly, team game, let down. You know, that's all I can say. You can lead the fucking cows to the water. Doesn't mean they're going to fucking drink it, does it? You know, so
you're immediately blaming your team.
Well, you know, I was only 1/4 of the team, so you know, quarter of it was me. We won't go over the stats, but just 1/4 of it was me, and yeah, it's I don't know. You do as much as you can for these guys, but you know, sometimes they just don't listen, and yeah, all sorts of mistakes made by them.
That sounds like bad leadership to me.
Oh, no, I hold a democracy here in my team. I never told them what to do. Whatever, they just got on with it, and yeah, they let themselves down. At the end of the day, they should feel sad for themselves. They know who they are.
Well, I'm just going to play a couple of clips from our draft show. If for those that missed it, obviously you can go back and listen to it, but if you haven't got, it took a couple of hours. I don't know what we were doing, but let's just give you a taster for what Paper's attitude was coming into this, and whether you can hear the change in his voice already, that's for sure.
Do you have a plan in place to stay at the top of the mountain? Because we've seen the likes of like a Pac-Man Adcock knocked off a dominant champion in the quiz in Adkins, and the very next year he lost it. What's to stop that happening for you? What's to stop you from being the next Andy Ruiz?
Well, first of all, let's address the real issue in the room. It's Le Champion versus Le Cheat. And that's what we've got here. The stallion of Le Champion, instead of facing another stallion, is facing a mashed potato weasel. And so it's degraded the whole competition. It's just not the thing that Le Champion needs to be facing at this moment in time. But the champion, that is me, will take the title. There is game plans, but that's for the champion to reveal at the end of the podcast, not the beginning. It's a season-long game, not an easy, not a "ooh, let's be friends" game. It's fucking tactics, mate. There's fucking data that goes in behind all of my decisions, and there's that data's in front of me right now. Whereas, "ooh, I want to be your friend." That's not going to get you the title. If it does, don't replay this clip.
So we have replayed that clip, and I mean, instead of giving you to reveal your tactics at the end of the podcast, we gave you the chance to reveal it at the end of the year. So here we are, me and Biff are sort of staring at each other, wondering what these tactics were. Do you care to explain what the plan was going in? Because Biff made a very conscious effort to try and choose people that he knew, that he felt like he could trust, whereas you were apparently looking at this fucking data that never seemed to materialise.
Well, if you rewind back, Southend United beat Manchester United once.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're the better team, does it? You know, these things happen. You know, in these knockout competitions. Leicester won the league once.
Sorry, in
the
that
best team.
analogy, are you Southend or are you Man United?
Oh, I'm Man United.
Fuck me.
just lost. You know, it's one game. You know, if this was best of 3 seasons. You know,
Well, we've got 3 years to iron out a feud. I mean, you get 10 games, you get 12 months to sort it, you get 4 transfer windows. This is a championship. This isn't a one-off fluke. This is a long campaign.
Fluke.
Well, Biff did respond, and I felt this was quite a funny response. I'm just going to play that, and then we'll crack on.
No, he's just trying to goad me. He hasn't got a point. I think he knows under your skin though, because you get hot under the collar, your little ears go red, and then
They still do.
people go all stressed again. Last year, I got laughed out with my picks, and I won. And then that clip was replayed, and Hall had egg on his face. And I'll be sitting here in a year's time, and you'll replay that clip of what Paper just said, and he'll have more egg on his face.
Yeah, instead it wasn't egg, it was mashed potato.
So
Could have cut it earlier. but
yeah,
thanks for that.
I mean, the mashed potato had to stay in, unfortunately. Couldn't get my finger off the recorder. And you only get one shot on WhatsApp to save it, so that's it. Didn't want to keep redoing it. But you've had your sweet moment now, Biff. I mean, that's it. You've done what you set out to do and stomped all over him.
Yeah, just gave him a real good bloody nose.
Yes. Well, we'll go through what happened, what the games were, and perhaps where it all went wrong for Paper. We must...
Oh, I've got work tomorrow, so...
Yeah, we'll try and truncate it. We'll do an abridged version. We must mention that Chappers, the webmaster himself, has won the Grand Prix. So we'll have a little bit more on that later. But he will be challenging Biff for the title. And we'll see how that one particularly goes. Look, let's do the teams. Paper, you had Adcock, Hall and Parky in your team. Okay. Biff chose to choose the first game. So he wasn't interested in the players. He wanted the first game. So you got the first pick of the personnel and had the advantage in that. You've just basically thrown them all under the bus in that opening statement. Do you care to explain exactly what they've done wrong? Because I've got data in front of me here which doesn't suggest they've done a lot wrong. And in fact, the captain may be at fault for some of these scores that have rolled in.
Yeah, well, you know, it wasn't really their picks that went too wrong. It was just, you know, the attitude. It put me off a little bit, if I'm being honest. You know,
who in particular?
Too many of them, Paul. No. All joking aside, no, they actually all performed a lot better than me, which is very frustrating. And I don't know who to point fingers at here, apart from looking in the mirror, and I'm actually looking in the mirror right now, and it's glorious, but it's
Was it cracked?
He's looking for a window, basically. Not a window, not a mirror.
Well, drinking my wine and just, you know, going down with the ship. But yeah, no, to be fair, they all sort of pulled out of the park, which is annoying because I don't have people to really point out.
No,
and I know this data's going to come back up and haunt me, so I'm like, I better get out of that one quickly before they get annoyed even more, because, you know, next season I have to play Happy Families.
Yeah, fair enough. And Mr. Biff, Team Balboa, Adkins loading in Chappers. No complaints from your end because you took the title, but I mean, not to give away his strategies for next year, but you can't have Chappers next year, so you have to find a replacement.
Well, it won't be fucking Piper, put it that way.
No, you might get left with him. If you choose first game again, you could be left with him.
Do you know what I just thought? That if Chappers was last pick, wasn't he? So that I was last pick. So the two people that were picked last have both won the individual thing in the last 2 years.
That is correct.
Wasn't I last pick the year before that?
I think you may well have been.
There you go, 3 for 3.
It's a bit of a hoodoo for people who can't get over it. Yeah. Team Balboa take the championship. Paper, Biff, you got first overall game pick. The Last of Us Part 2, 93. It pretty much delivered what you was expecting, and despite the mounting pressure on that game, because it was hugely hyped, it's come out, and pretty much I can't see how you can have any complaints with that one.
No, it's done exactly what I wanted it to do, and I was very happy with it. And when I played it as well.
Yes, yeah, agreed. Paper, you on the other hand decided to go for Resident Evil 3. So this was the only game you couldn't have picked was The Last of Us Part 2. And your golden rule is what led you to glory last season was get over an 80 and the season will sort itself out. Well, your very first pick fell short of that, albeit minorly, but it still fell short of the target score. And Resident Evil 3 clocked in at a 79. I raised my concerns of you last year about it being too soon after 2 and maybe not being as well thought out. You dismissed those, and that's what you've ended up with, a 79 out the gates.
Yeah, I think this is where the data's really let me down.
Still falling on that data.
Where I looked at the previous release and it had done incredibly well, one of the games of the year. And I thought, well, you know what, even if it doesn't get game of the year, it's still going to be a top scoring game. They can't go from being at peak so quickly to being so poor, considering both were somewhat being developed at the same time. And for me, I was like, well, they're just surely going to be two bangers. And I think actually a lot of people had this at the top or near the top of their list. So I don't think it was just me that was fooled by this one. It was like an anthem all over again from the previous season for Hull. It just didn't take off the way people expected.
Yeah, fair enough. Biff, you ended up with Adkins as your first pick. He dropped you Cyberpunk 2077. That's pretty much what the game hinged on. You were a few dozen points behind Paper. That was your final game coming out. It's been through 2, maybe even 3 delays this year, and it came out on the deadline, and there were reviews ahead of time to secure you a closing score of 91, which is far in excess of what you needed. But the score has dropped down to 87 because of, I guess, the performance issues of the base console. So that's starting to go down a little bit. But, I mean, at some point during this, once you'd subbed it in, you must have been frightened when the delays started rolling in. And was there ever a worry that it's going to get pushed to 2021 and Paper was going to win via a bit of a poor way to win it, really, when there's a game cancelled at the last minute or delayed?
Yeah, I was shitting myself because it got pushed back to like the 10th of December, didn't it? But it didn't get pushed because I had the last transfer window. I didn't transfer it out. And then about a week after the transfer window closed, they then said, it's going to push it back to the 10th of December. And I was like, nightmare. But luckily it come out. And like you say, I was so close to Piper. It just needed to come out. That's all it needed to do. Even if it was like 60, I think I would have won, wouldn't I? Yeah. So I was just, all it needed to do was come out, which it did, thankfully. But I was under the, sweating a little bit over that one.
What's the rationale behind not just quickly subbing in a banker like a FIFA or like, because they're going to come out those games, they don't miss, or a Call of Duty even, like they were still available. That would have secured you the title. You could have looked at the maths and probably seen that you were on track. What's keeping you back from doing that?
I just didn't think it would get delayed. I thought because it was like at a November release date, I think it was, or it might have been October, I can't remember now, but I didn't think it wouldn't come out, and it was only after the window closed that they pushed it back that I suddenly thought, shit, that might not come out now. I could have blown this by not doing that. But it didn't even cross my mind to do that until it got delayed. Yeah,
fair enough. Paper, your first pick was Adcock. He got you Doom Eternal, a score of 89. Second best game on your roster. And I think when that was picked, we both everyone said, yeah, that's a good one to be getting at number sort of 3 or 4.
Yeah, like Doom Eternal. I would have, and that's where that sort of scoreline is where in my head whereas Resi was going to fall as well.
Yeah.
On the previous one, but yeah, it was sort of a bank. We all knew it was coming. It was meant to come in the year before, and it just got pushed back over the line. So
it cost Hall, didn't it? That's the game that.
I think it'd already been cost because of Anthem, but
first game
that
out,
really
61.
cost him. Yeah, but it's it was one of those ones that I think everyone knew that was a banker as soon as that was coming out. So like it was a good pick, you know. Adcock did well out of that one, I think, in comparison to his second one, which was dubious, which we'll come on to later. But you know, that one was a real, you know, hammered that one home.
Yep. Loading was your second pick, Biff. Got you Persona 5 Royal. I bet you didn't even know what Persona 5 was. You were people calming you down, saying, "Don't worry about it. Stop fixating on it." And it actually delivers the highest scoring game of the entire season with a 94. I mean, you've had your clashes with Logan in the past, but he gifted you one there, didn't he?
Yeah, that was just a
early doors from what I remember. It was quite early in the season.
Yeah. It was I think it was one of the first games I had actually that come out. But yeah, I've never heard of it. But if someone hands you a 95, you just go, well, you can't really say anything to that, can you? You just have to bow your head and go, yeah.
Take it on the chin, absolutely. Paper, your old stomping ground buddy Hall, who seems to have turned on you now because of your attitude. Final Fantasy VII Remake, 88. Probably about where I thought it was going to land. I don't think you were too concerned about that dropping as an 88.
Yeah, the man that hates remakes or DLCs in the draft really pulled that one out of the bag.
Real bitter.
For context, there was a clip posted around in the group chat earlier, which had him moan at me for picking DLCs and remasters a couple of years ago and winning the Grand Prix. But yeah, he did that. It always works. These things we know work. There are certain tactics you can look at and go, we know that one's going to be a banker, and you just know it is. So unless they really, really make a fuck up of it, like something like Fallout, 76 or something along those lines, they're sort of banker games, and this is another one scored well as well. So yeah, it was definitely on the top end of the average of sort of games you want in your picks.
Yep. Chappers was next for you, Biff. As you mentioned, the last pick of the entire draft and has come through to win. So that's happened at least twice. But I'll go back and check papers one day. But this was a substitution. Initially you had Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, the console edition, and Chappers revealed post the sort of draft had been done that was an admin error. He'd copied and pasted it in by accident from another list he was making somewhere. And the pair of you got your heads together and committed on Half-Life Alyx, the VR game that was coming, the first Half-Life game in over a decade. And I had my reservations because it's VR. I mean, there's not too many high-scoring games out there in the VR form, but Half-Life Alyx came out and bags are 92. You're off to a flyer with these top four. They're all in the 90s.
Do you know what? It was so lucky as well because I was literally 50-50 between Skater XL and that. And I think Skater XL scored I might have been 60.
60, yeah.
Yeah. So that was just pure luck. I just thought because of the Half-Life thing, I did say this before, that I didn't think they'd want to piss the franchise away and they'd put their name to something a bit better.
Yeah.
So I decided to go with that. But I didn't think it'd get that sort of score. But yeah. Blew me away.
Having played it, I wouldn't give it that score either, but I'm not a paid critic, so you can take that to where you want it. Parky, the rookie paper, you chose Parky over Chappers. You had the opportunity to sort of throw Chappers a bone, and you was waffling on about data and all this garbage, and then you decided to pick someone that had no data. Parky had no backstory, he had no history, he was a complete rookie at this entire system. Well, first of all, why did you choose him? And then we'll come on to the game itself. But I still can't get my head around that one. When the man that's always got the data in front of him goes after a black hole.
So the data was that I believe it was. If you looked at the top two games, I think Chappers the year before, I think he'd finished bottom of like the top two of his picks, and so like and he proved everyone wrong by winning this year. But you know, from the previous year, if you looked at the previous year, I think he finished bottom, and it was the choice to take, you know, the person that had finished, I guess, bottom's top two picks, and I stress the top two picks, or someone new to the fold that you think, well, you know, could be a stab in the dark, could do an Adcock or whatever. So I decided to roll the dice a little bit on that, and that's sort of where it didn't have the data, but there was data that sort of backed up that decision. And at the time, I think with the admin error choice and stuff like that, you know, it was a valid decision.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say something, right?
Yeah.
With Parky's, I listened to the thing today of what the first that podcast you did, or what it was, and when you picked the game, you were so unsure of it. You said, "Well, I'll sub that out," and App said you can't because it comes out before the first.
Yes.
So even though you say, like, and I think the game he gives you was your high scoring game as well. So if you'd have had your way, you'd have actually got rid of your high scoring game.
Yes.
Yeah, but this was all a part of the plan, you know, just to let people's guards down and so forth. And you fell for the trap there, Biff. You know, plenty of times you fell for the trap this season. It's just a game, isn't it? You know, these tactics. I had so much trust in Parky and his picks, and you know, I think misquoting me is not doing you justice as the leader of the Dimp franchise next season.
Well, you did say you were going to try and sub that out, and I had to say that it was out before the first transfer window. I mean, lucky you didn't, because it bagged you a 90. Animal Crossing New Horizons. I mean, this released like weeks before or during like the first time the world started shutting down for COVID, and I've got it and played tens of hours of it and enjoyed it. It felt like it came at the right time. I still think without that happening, it still would have scored pretty well, but you can't have been expecting a 90 out of that paper after you had slagged it off and tried to get rid of it outside of the transfer windows.
No, I don't think. Yeah, that was I think for everyone the surprise of the year, just generally gaming wise. If you look back at 2020 in terms of something that came out of the blue, that, you know, obviously the Animal Crossing fans wouldn't have said it came out of the blue, but there's just generally everyone else that sort of just hit home and it came out at that right time. And I'm pretty sure that it coming out at that start of that COVID period did help boost it maybe a point or two in the overall score, but generally it was still scored very high 80s on its sort of game, and so it turned out to be a really good pick, and I was forever grateful for Parky picking that one.
Well, you may have burnt your bridges with him. He'll be after you next season in the top three, that's for sure.
Whose bridges are still standing? That's the question.
Maybe Adcock. Maybe you still got goodwill with him. I don't know. We've got Kakarot coming up, so maybe you'll burn that when we go through the scoring of that. But we get to Biff's sort of second round lot. We've got Ghost of Tsushima from Adkins. That's a 91 and 85 bagged for him. The boy just doesn't miss, does he, in this team game?
You need him. Like you say, he's never not been on the losing team. He's like a fucking lucky charm.
Every team he's been on, there's like 4 seasons properly the teams, he's been on the winning side every single time.
Just get Adkins. That's the key to winning.
Paper could have had him as well. He could have had the lucky charm.
I couldn't believe it, because my first game I wanted was Last of Us, and my first pick would have been Adkins, and I got both.
You said on the podcast, you said the reason I chose first game is because I don't think he's going to choose the person I want. So I'm gonna. There goes a battery. I'm going to choose first game because I know what I want, and I'm going to get the first person as well. And you got both, and it pulled off an 85 Ghost of Tsushima. I know you didn't finish it, but great game. 85 kind of feels a bit low in my mind, coming to think of it when you look at some of the other games around that sort of high 80s. But maybe you'll agree with it because you walked away from it before the end.
Yeah, I felt it got a bit too samey and like just clearing shit off a map. But I'm known for not being able to cope with that.
Looked fucking lush though.
Yeah, it did look good, and it was good. It was a good game. I did think it might get slightly higher, like you say, when you look at stuff around it. But I think, is that my 5th game?
Yes.
And that's my lowest scoring game, and that was like, what was it, 85? You say?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just incredibly lucky that the people have picked really well for me, really.
It's technically not the lowest scoring game. We'll get onto that.
Oh, okay.
You get let down.
No, out of my first 5.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, your first 5. Yeah, that is. Yes, that's a good first sort of 5 for sure. conversely, Paper, Adcock, your first pick, the man that was trusted through all sorts of different data analysis, drops you in Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot, 73. So you got two 70s. The rule of 80 is broken twice in the opening 5 games. Another early one as well. This come out early and didn't set the world on fire. And then at that point, you surely thought, I might be on the back foot here.
Yeah, I think once this one went and when Biff's early sort of games came out, I knew it was going to be an uphill battle, to be honest, and so I sort of reflected into my subs later, and we can come on to that. But when we get there, but like, yeah, I did feel I sort of get the idea. Like, it was on my list, but it was down. I remember down at like 15th or something on my like list of games I wanted. Yeah. And I just thought to make someone's top 2, or maybe not 2 because some of the games would have gone, but even top 5 was a bit questionable, but equally so it could have worked. It was one of those ones that, you know, if they'd done right, there's the fan base there to go and wet themselves over it. Yeah. But, you know, they'll push it because they clearly, yeah, exactly. But they clearly wasn't done the justice that the fan base therefore wanted, or the critics wanted, and it just wasn't given the score. So I think it's unlucky, you know, done well. It could have been a different game, or could have been a different, you know, point scoring thing, but it was just one of those ones. I think at that point when that one came out, I sort of prepared for the worst in the league, because that was quite early, to be honest. That was like in the first fucking couple of months.
Yeah, it wasn't a great start with that one dropping. Yeah, January. That was the first game out the gates, I think. So you don't want the rule of 80 being broken 13 days into the season. That's exactly what happened with that. And it cost Adcock, because he, although he was your number 1 pick, he ended up with the worst team score. So 162. And that goes to show the data wasn't aligned with what was happening this year for sure. A stinker for Adcock, and he's had a terrible time in the Grand Prix as well. He's on a real down of that boy. Makes me wonder whether he'll be here next season. These sort of, I was saying earlier, like jokingly, like there might be relegations if people are going to be that bad. Sort of get some of the fans in. They'll do a better job, put more passion into it. So that's a call to action for Adcock as you're listening. Biff, loading with his second game's Minecraft Dungeons. Didn't come out till sort of midway through the year, and I never thought it was going to set the world on fire. It didn't, and in all honesty, 74 is a bit shit in comparison to the rest of your team.
Yeah, basically, I spoke to Logan about it. And
threw him a bone.
I said, what do you think? He said, I'll deep it in. I think it'll be all right. To be fair, if you had the 95 up and what was it, 74?
Yeah.
Still got me a decent average, and he ain't done bad. But I think he got me my highest scoring game and my lowest scoring game. So
yes, he did. Yeah,
that's just sums loading up, just genius followed by absolute shit. I've said it before, so yeah, you never know with loading what you're going to get. No, but yeah, his average for the team was more than decent. So he bowed himself out. Yeah, exactly.
Paper Hall got you Ori and the Will of the Wisps, a nice 90. Joint highest with Parky's Horizon. Horizon. What am I talking about? Animal Crossing New Horizons. Hall, you don't like the man, but he's produced a stunning score and picked up the MVP award this year. So can't really complain for getting him in.
Wow, I wouldn't say he wouldn't like the man, crikey. But
so you've told me.
He's
confidence.
That is not true.
You
right,
said 50-head cunt.
I was talking about you.
My hair's dead straight, mate.
burning all the bridges. No.
We can take points off still.
I've got nothing left to take. No,
I'll find something to take from a man, trust me. When they're the lowest, I can really put my foot on their neck and finish them off.
Yeah, I've been there. Right. So, yeah, to be fair, Hall was always a good pick, and I know we were opposing captains the year before, and we were going to and from, and even this season, even though we're in the same team, it was like we were fucking, kids bickering the whole year with each other. But he will also produce a good game. And the thing was with Hall, even if he wants to, he won't want to score badly because he won't want to let himself down either. So he's going to pull it out of the bag. So, in my opinion, now looking at all of them, he's definitely, in terms of team picks for next year, it's him and Adcock have got to be the top two. Otherwise, I'll be
Adcock's just got the worst score.
Adkins.
Right,
Adkins,
you're making my
yeah.
mistake. That's fine. I'll let people off for that. Those fucking Tom Ad brothers does my head in. Those two.
Those TAs, right? Yeah, those two have got to be top picks. It's just. They pull it out the bag every season. Adkins, though he's never won the league, he's consistently good on his top 5 games, and Hall is just generally a tryhard, so he's going to do well.
Absolutely. Chappers installs Neo 2 to you, Biff, with an 85. I mean, I don't think you knew much about Neo 2, but trusted Chappers enough to leave it in, and overall, for a game coming that sort of late down in 6, you can't really complain again.
No, yeah, 85 at 6. Like you say, I knew nothing about the game. I spoke to him. He said it would do well. Trusted him. So, paid dividends, didn't it?
Yeah.
Sounded like David Brent then. Trust,
loyalty, reward, equal satisfaction.
I think this is the difference between your team and my team, the word trust.
Well, you breached all the trust of the comments, I reckon, before the season kicked off. Poor Parky's sitting there, rookie year, just needs an arm around his shoulder, and he's trying to have his fucking captain transfer out all his games. You want a shot of him? Deary me. Parky, coming on to Parky, he was your next pick and the final sort of team pick for you. Ended up subbing in Yakuza Like a Dragon. I think he gave you, I can't remember what he gave you before. Was it Cuphead that you had before from Parky?
We did have, it was, no, it wasn't, because we subbed Cuphead in, and then we subbed it out again. Cuphead was a double
Axiom
sub, which
Verge
was really
2?
annoying. No, that was me.
Carry on.
That was me.
New World was you.
I was new. I can't remember, mate. It was something along those lines.
But you ended up with Yakuza anyway, 86. Ended up trusting him eventually. A 90 and 86. Not bad for a rookie year.
Yeah, I think he proved, the data was there with these picks. That's what I'm going to say. The data was sound on the Parky judgment. Once again, probably a safe pick for next year for the returning captains.
Yeah, I mean, it was his rookie year, like I mentioned. He netted himself a 174 after subs. He took 1 sub, and that put him second. So, yeah, he quietly got himself into a good position and might be challenging for a top spot when it comes next year. Biff, your last 3 games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was subbed in. Now, you played the game for about 3 hours and walked away from it. You must be counting your lucky stars that it got you an 83 from what you played. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's good I didn't review it, because it wouldn't have got a fucking 83. But, the new Creeds, the Odyssey, the Origins have done quite well review-wise, so I was just hoping it'd hit 80, so that was my sort of the sort of target I set it, so anything above 80 I'd be happy with. So, yeah, I was very happy with 83.
Yeah, can't complain. Spider-Man Miles Morales was your next one. 85, that was also subbed in. I guess that was just waiting for confirmation that it's going to come out this year. We kind of thought it was, but it wasn't until later on that we kind of knew, and then eventually it launched alongside the PS5.
Yeah, I thought it'd do quite well. The only thing I was worried about is if it wouldn't get its own score, because it was sort of a bit mundled in with the Spider-Man, weren't it? I was a bit frightened it might not, but if it come out, and I thought it would do, again, low to mid 80s, which it did. So yeah, again, very happy. Bearing in mind it's like 7th or 8th pick.
Yeah.
And then you're getting 85. That's still pretty good.
Exactly. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, another substitution, and got a 90. Trusting in the retro stuff.
Yeah. Like when we were speaking about Resident Evil, I think it was because you said that Resident Evil 2 and 3 were meant to be released together. And I think that is what killed Resident Evil 3, because the game wasn't long enough. And then they saw then they should have released those two together. That's why I scored low. But because they had both of them coming out, the retro, and they released an album with it and things like that, I thought the nostalgia would score it well, which, luckily it did.
Yep, done a good job with that. I played through that. It's excellent. Paper, your final 3 picks. You got Hyrule Warriors, Age of the Calamity subbed in. Chose to give up Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which scored a couple of points higher than it. Get sucked in by the Zelda hype, I guess, with this. It didn't score badly in the end, but I know people were sometimes trying to attach 90s to any Zelda or Link to Zelda, no pun intended.
Yeah, you just got to be honest, when Nintendo drop a Mario or a Zelda game and you're that far into the season, you just sort of got to just grab one. And both of them dropped roughly at say, or were coming around the same time. And I had and I had one space, and it was sort of a bit of a flip of a coin. It's like, do I go for Mario or do I go for Zelda? I thought actually Zelda would probably score a little bit more because it was a unique take on the game, whereas the Mario was more of just like a rehashed of 3 of the games. It wasn't. It was Mario Party, wasn't it? Or was it?
No, it's Super Mario 3D All Stars, which was
that's it.
Galaxy.
With the 3 games.
3D World and whatever it is, 3 of them put together. And it ended up that it was being a lazy port anyway, so it didn't score as highly as it should have done. Like with those 3 Mario games, that should be high 80s, and it was sort of low 80s in the end. But it was still higher than Hyrule Warriors, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it was just, I think there was a lot of hype around Hyrule Warriors from the Zelda community, and I thought, I've got a space in the team. I can't remember what was not coming out. I think it was Axe and Verge 2. Wasn't coming out, or definitely it's just too late at that point. And so I was like, right, I'll make the sub for that. And it, to be fair, it was just a flip of a coin. You said it was a couple of points difference in it, and I think that's all. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter.
No, it didn't. It wouldn't have made a difference. Paper Mario, the Origami King, 78. Nintendo, not really paying dividends there. I imagine you was expecting higher from that.
Yeah, that's another one you expect, to be mid 80s to even low 90s.
Where's the Nintendo
it's one of those. Yeah, I know. It felt like this year Nintendo, apart from Animal Crossing, fell off their sort of little bandwagon a little bit. Just didn't seem to hit the ball home this year.
No, it wasn't a good year.
Could have been there. Yeah, exactly, for them. And usually expect a bit more of a bump. That was another one. It was one of the ones as well. Like even people like Hall was expecting to be a lot higher than it was scored and stuff like that. And at that part, I think a bunch of people, even in the group, just going out and buying it, seeing that score, was like, actually, let's not bother. So yeah, it was just one of those ones that should have scored. Well, I say should have scored. It didn't deserve to score more. But you would have thought, at the start of the year, it's going to be a reasonably good score, but just didn't have the mustard.
No, absolutely not. And then probably the story of the year was you subbing in Marvel's Avengers after Biff had subbed it out. He'd got rid of that, binned it off, obviously didn't trust it. First of all, Biff, what was the rationale behind subbing out Marvel's Avengers? Was there a fear it wasn't going to come out, or was it just that you'd seen enough of it and thought, actually, I don't like the look of this?
Well, basically, I saw the video, I thought it looked all right, and then obviously I put it in the pick. Paper ripped me apart, said he didn't like the look of it, thought it looked shit. Then I saw some gameplay footage and I thought it does look shit.
Yes.
And I did think that looks really poor. Got rid of it, and then Piper decided to sub it in. So I don't know. Again, the data, you'd have to ask him what the data would have told him. But yeah.
It feels like an emotional reaction to me, Paper. You're trying to get under Biff's skin, trying to steal a good one, but it ended up with 68, which is the worst pick of the championship.
Yeah, I think it was at this point. Even if it's got 20 more points, I weren't catching Biff. So even if it was like, mid 80s or something like that, I weren't going to be catching Biff. And it's quite late in the game. And I was just like, I had an opportunity to ruffle feathers. And I thought, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out in a bang. And I'll ruffle as many feathers on that way out as I can. And the thing that made it a bit more funny at the time was, I think it was like there was a couple of messages in the group saying, oh, this looks like it's going to score really well.
Well, it started off in like the 80s somewhere.
Exactly, and Biff was livid at that. He was scoring well, and he was getting annoyed by it. And I went to apps, I went to sub that in. I think I said at the time, I don't think it's going to score great, but it'll still be worth the comedy value that it's going to get out of this. And there was all hell broke loose in the WhatsApp group after that happened.
Well, yeah, it caused a bit of a rift because there was no open critic score, because I think they only post an aggregated score after 5 reviews, but there was like 2 or 3 reviews that were already published on it, and you'd gone into the page, seen there were like 8.5 out of 10, and grabbed it, and there was a bit of it needs to have the independent commissioner take a look over. That was signed off. They said, yeah, it's fine, it's not been officially scored, he's just using the tools that are available. It's a bit sneaky. So I was expecting an 80s odd game to drop, and then as more and more reviews come out, much like the way Cyberpunk's going, it just went down and down and down and settled on a 68, which at that stage was the death knell for you.
Yeah, I think it definitely went down 10 more points than I thought it would get when I made the sub. But equally so, I was never catching Biff at this point. It's quite near the end of the season, and I think that Biff had already scored like about 60, 90 fucking games, and it was like, well, this isn't going to happen this year, is it? And so, it was just a bit of jest, and I just wanted to just see the reaction it got, and it was worth the reaction, to be honest. I went out with in a great ball of fire, which was nice.
Biff, you subbed out Marvel's Avengers, like you said. That was one of your substitutes. That's the only game that came out on your list that you'd subbed out. We talked about Pillars of Eternity 2 being an admin error, so that had to go. Super Meat Boy Forever, that's been on everyone's, well, mainly Adcock's list for, it feels like a generation now, and it's finally got a release date, December the 23rd. You were apprehensive about this game during the draft because you thought you'd done some level of research. As the podcast went on and we were recording it, you done more and looked like it weren't going to drop. And as it turned out, you made the right decision because it missed the cut-off point. But I guess that was one of the first ones on your list to get rid of Super Meat Boy Forever. Yeah.
Ironically as well, bearing in mind I think it's been on someone's list for the last 3 years, it's coming out and no one will actually have it on their list because it comes out in an area where we don't actually play. So.
Exactly. It's coming out in the off-season.
Yeah, basically. You probably get a 99.
I know, that'd be the highest scoring game ever.
But I had to get rid of it.
And then the other one was Dying Light 2. I mean, you chucked that in.
Was that a date yet?
No. So again, the right decision. I mean, was that purely, again, just it's been silent, I'm not trusting this, or did you think actually it's might be a bit of a shitter?
I thought when what's that thing called mid-year, and it gives you like a heads up of all the games that are coming out.
Like E3,
E3, that's it. I thought it will get definitely saying at E3, and it was pretty silent. And I was like, right, that needs to go because that was coming out this year. There'd have been a big fucking stand and a video for that, and nothing happened. So I was like, right, get rid of that.
Yeah, that could have been a COVID victim, who knows, but a bit of silence there. Paper, your subs were New World, which I remember you saying was a bit of a personal pick for you. You actually got to play a bit of this in the beta, didn't you? Or alpha, or whatever it was?
Yeah, me and Lapper jumped on it, so Dave, and it though we will enjoy the game when it comes out, it's just not going to score well. I'm sort of glad it's been delayed by nearly a year now from when it's meant to be coming out. From a personal point of view, would I pick it next season in my 10 games? It'll be on the list, but it'll be sitting very, very, very far down, and I'll be surprised if you get that far down. If you do, then it'll be on the list. But it's one of those ones that I think I picked it more in sort of like the type of game that I would like. But that's definitely not going to score well, and it won't score well when it comes out either, even when they fix the buggy mess that it was when I played it.
No. Next one was Carry On, which did come out, and I think this is what you subbed Avengers out for. That scored a 77, so you paid 5 points to score 9 points less, so a 14-point net loss there. That'll go down as one of the all-time calamities, won't it?
I think it was one of the ones where we was at the last transfer window as well, or something along those lines, and we had to make a choice, and there was no word of it. And I kept Googling Carry On every day to see when it's coming out.
I think it was the mid-season one, but
silence.
Yeah, it was silent.
It was just it was silence, and I think it was just like, oh, right, come on, this got to go. Otherwise, you hold on to too much for too long, and it just doesn't come out. And it's one of those ones, a bit like what Biff was saying with Super Meat Boy Forever, it just drops randomly, and you're like, oh, well, there it is.
It literally dropped just 2 weeks after you got rid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It just appeared for 77, which wasn't a bad score. Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course, that was a piece of DLC that, again, it was radio silence on that, so I guess you had to get rid of that. You can't be holding on to that till late doors.
Yeah, exactly. Another one. Just
2021.
Just too silent.
Yep. And then Axiom Verge 2 was the other one. That's gone on Detour as well, so I'm assuming silence costs that as well.
Yeah, I even reached out to the developer on that one on Twitter.
I forgot about that. Did they get back to you?
Tom, I think his name is, fuck you. I can't remember his surname, but he just didn't respond. I said it's important for the game in Fantasy League, and he clearly didn't hit home with him what it was for, so he just didn't respond.
No.
Livid. But hey-ho, these things happen. That's definitely, though, a game that, you would expect to score well when it does come out, just because of the fan base, and there won't be many people reviewing it, and the people that review it will want to play that type of game. So it's one of the ones maybe for 2021. Who knows?
Yep. Well, that's a run through of the teams and what happened. The actual final scores were Team Balboa, aka Biff, 8-5-2, and it was penalised 20 points for the substitutions made, 4 subs. And Papers Parappa the Rappers scored an 8-0-1 with 20 points taken away for substitutions. In the end, wasn't as close as perhaps what people were thinking. Biff, that is a new record, I'll have you know. So that team score is the brand new highest record in the championship game. So that's another feather to your cap. You must be very proud at the moment, sitting there. I hope you've got the belt on and it's just not in that bag again.
Yeah, it's around my head.
Yeah. Won't fit around your small head. I'll be sliding down. I mean, was you expecting that though? 8-5-2 to be the new leading sort of score runner. That's formidable for people to even get that record.
No, well, I didn't think I'd get the greatest of all time belt. But you've got to look at Piper and think, did he get the best out of me? Probably, because he's so insufferable. I had to just bring my A game. So, in a way, you can thank Piper for just being himself. He had to be beaten. So
I'll take that. I am the reason for that score. I'll have that. I'll go down on record.
So, Paper, you got 801. Average of 82 overall. Biff, your average was 87, which is fucking insane. 801 for you, Paper. Last year, that would have been enough to beat Hall. Now, he had an unreleased game, but unless it scored like 98, he wouldn't have caught you. So you probably had done enough to win last year as well, but this year wasn't enough. What's happened there? Was Biff just too good?
There was too many 90 scores from Biff's team, to be honest, this year, and they were so early on that it really set precedent. And I think maybe it gave Biff some false sense of like urgency that consistently my games were always dropping before so I was always ahead for quite a long part of the season. It wasn't really to the end till Biff overtook when his games actually dropped. But he was always scoring those like 90s really early on, and I sort of knew when I got like I think the difference had become like I was suddenly like, I don't know, 40 points ahead of him, but as a game I was already dropped an extra game, and I was like, well, there is no way to come back from this. So yeah, it was exactly. And I think that's all we hoped for during the end when Cyberpunk was hoping that the consistent Cyberpunk delays would eventually roll over, but it just didn't happen. So yeah, it was a good performance. Like, it was actually more my games that probably let the team down more than anything. My picks, apart from the one Adcock pick.
Funny you should say that.
That is, but is I even if those had come in a bit better, I think it would have been a real struggle to get an average of 87, and it was those 90s that fucking killed me. I think last year me and Hall spoke about you need to get at least a couple of 90s, not get 5 or whatever he ended up getting, and so that's ridiculous. I'd be impressive if you get that sort of average next year. Yeah, I'll be very impressed if we get anywhere close to that for a couple of seasons, to be honest.
Yeah, last year you scored an 839, so you definitely had a drop off this time and took one less sub. So we can put the subs probably down to a bit of COVID because there probably were more delays than usual, but everyone relatively done pretty well to get a 10-game roster. The only person who didn't was Pac-Man Adcock. Diabolical performance. I'll just run through the Grand Prix. Chappers won it with 812 and an average of 84. Adkins was second with 803 and an average of 82. Parkey was then third, again the rookie, 790 with an 82 average. Hall was talking a big game and ends up finishing fourth, which is going to hurt his pride, I can tell you that. But his average was 79, got a 782, took the least amount of substitutions in 10. He's trying to do it purely, but that's not the way to play the game. Logan, who was a dark horse for a while, 766 with an average of 79. He really got costed by Godfall, Bleeding Edge, both scoring in the 60s. That dragged him down. Pac-Man Adcock, I think he made 9 substitutions, 5 games still outstanding, finishes on a wretched 350. I mean, you wouldn't even wipe your ass with that, would you? And you're talking about relegation needing to be done. That's particularly why. I polled the top 4 games from every person's list, and the reason I use the top 4 is because you guys actually, out of the 10, only get to directly initially select the 4 of those games. So it's kind of a way to manage and look how well people have done, almost on an even kill. You guys are at a bit of a disadvantage because you have to use your last 3 at the end, but you get one of the first 2 games anyway. But here's the rankings for the averages. Chappers was topping it with a 91 average in his team, which is pretty insane if you're using these top 4. Adkins, top 4, scored 89, so he's up there again. Biff, you were third with 88 with your 4. Hall, 87. Parky, 87. Logan, 86.5, or 87 if you want to round it up. Adcock, 80 or 81 if you want to round it up, because it was 80.5. Paper, you were well away the worst with the 4 games, with a 76. I mean, if that doesn't tell me where the weak link is, sitting, propping up fucking 7 others in an averages battle, I don't know what else. I don't know what other story I can tell. I can't even spin that into something positive.
I think we need a recount.
All right,
this is rigged, and you're just trying to make the mainstream media trying to make me look bad here.
That's just not true. Just some quick stats. Hall was MVP, like I mentioned. No subs and a score of 178 in the team game. Parky got second in his rookie year, which is impressive, for 174. Worst performer was Paper's number 1 pick, Adcock, with a 162. So the pick of the bunch he had, didn't even have to wait for one person to be picked. He chose Adcock, and that's what he delivered. Lowest scoring games across both sets of games, across the Championship and the Grand Prix. Skater XL and Godfall, and they were going to Chappers and Logan respectively. I mean, that's insane that Chappers has won the Grand Prix with the joint lowest game in there. That shows how strong the rest of his team was. High scoring game was Persona 5, which was Logan, so that's good work from him. Biff, here's an interesting stat based on your last year's performance. So you obviously won the Grand Prix to challenge for the Championship. You scored 745 last year, and that was enough to win it and put you in this position to knock Piper off.
Fuck me, I wouldn't even been in the running, would I?
No, you would have finished 5th with that. I mean, the levels to which these boys come at that Grand Prix was astounding. That is a huge increase, and in a year where I doubt it'll get more uncertain than that, given COVID and delays and all sorts of people having to change working arrangements. No different for the video game world. That is insane from everyone else. That is just unbelievable that if they had been there last year, that sort of score, they would have been toppling your one to get in there. So that just proves that people are starting to get good at this and learning the game, playing the game a bit better. As I say, Paper, you would have lost yourself last year. So you can take that home to yourself, that your 2019 self is better than 2020. Going backwards. Biff, doesn't matter. You have the highest score ever, so you would have won last year and all other years preceding that. So really a top performance from you. Top performance from Chappers as well to win out that Grand Prix. And we save it. That's it. I don't know, Biff, if you've got anything else to say or to goad at Paper. You could either bury him in the mud here, or you could perhaps try and be the better man, but I'll leave it down to you to decide where you take the conversation next.
I think just Piper buried himself in the mud. So, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And, Piper, obviously, like I said, being as annoying as he is, it got me to really try hard. I wasn't even that bothered before that podcast, and I was like, right, I've got to fucking win now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it was good. It was good. It was, like you say, a very good year. A lot of games coming out, all scoring well. I just think next year will it be a lot harder with COVID? When we have to do this again, will it make it more difficult? Because will these, I don't actually know a lot of games that are coming out next year that are like big hitters.
It feels like there's a lack of clarity, because obviously the leading to 2020, we still had E3. Everything was churning away up until the end of 2019 at full pelt. Now things have ground to a halt from sort of March onwards and been slowed down. You actually wonder whether next year is going to be the year that could be really tricky. with the lag, because the games don't get made in a year. Like this could be a very important time, these sort of last 9 months, and it's been disrupted for all this. So you could be right. People are going to have to be researching a way to get their list together and come up with something competitive, because I think you're right. I think when I think about it, there's not really a great deal. There's a lot of pie in the sky for the likes of like God of War and whatnot that you think definitely won't come out. But I mean, there's always that decision: do you take the risk and chuck it on there, or do you just bin it off? But what do you think of Chappers as a competitor? Because he's now smashed his way to be in par with you. He'll be getting that lovely trophy shortly to take back to him and his family. Are you scared? Are you looking forward to sort of dealing with someone that hopefully won't be a prick? I mean, where are you coming at in terms of this 2021 rivalry?
Well, I think he sort of knows his stuff a lot more, obviously, than what I do. I just sort of know the big name games. He seems to know like the ins and outs of a duck's arse sort of thing. So it might make it a bit more tricky this year. I might get sort of found out and unfolded. But time will tell. I might luck out. I might, beat my own average and become the greatest even more of all time. Time will tell next year.
Yes, it will indeed. Paper, this is your chance to perhaps build bridges, redeem yourself. I mean, Biff's sort of sitting right there. You could be kind to him. You could be horrible to him. You could just go off on another promo. What are we going to hear from you, Paper, on your final? Because we may never hear from you again after this. You might get stuck in that Grand Prix rot with Hall, scrabbling it out for 5th and 6th. That's what could be happening for you two. The former greats, past their time, old, should have retired years ago. Like Tyson and fucking Jones Jr. going at it. What say you?
It was a good year. It was a good couple of years. I enjoyed my moment at the top. I made the most of that moment. Many bridges were burned. So luckily, I've got some timber in my back pocket, and we can start rebuilding those bridges. I think everyone knew it was all in jest, and it wasn't ever really horrible, which is nice, and it was good fun. I'm hoping people found it entertaining for the last year or so, because the entertainment's going now, unfortunately, and you're going to be left with just, I don't know, probably falling asleep, to be honest, with Biff at the helm. But sorry, Biff, the bridge doesn't get built. The others can. I'm joking. But yeah, I'm actually generally quite looking forward to being able to pick 10 games for the first time. Not the way I'd want to do it, not bailing out to Biff, because I definitely have got many eggs on many faces at the moment. But it'll be fun to be able to pick 10 games for once, rather than being able to manage a team, which I've had to do for 2 seasons. So slightly different. I mean, I'm looking forward to rekindling that rivalry with Hall. See who comes where in the Grand Prix next season. Even if we're battling out for 5th and 6th, there'll be some bitterness there, which I'm much looking forward to. Yeah,
excellent. Well, Biff, look, congratulations, mate. It's not often I say it to you, because you don't normally do well in things in life. So, great performance in the Fantasy Gaming League. You are now Le Champion. You can wear that belt. You can put it up on your mantelpiece. You can go in that beautiful games room that you've been putting together with all your bits and pieces. And it's a well-earned championship for sure. So, I hope you're pleased with yourself. And even if it's not for the belt, just to beat Paper should be enough to make you rest easy at night for the next 12 months or so. But we've got Chappers coming up your arse very shortly. Well, that's it for us here on Idle Game Chat. Next week will be our gaming quiz. So you guys are going to have fun playing that whilst I get to host that. And we're going to find out who wins the second title in the Dimp Gaming, rankings. There's always a rivalry going on for that. So same time, same place next Monday to close out the year, and then we'll be back in the new year. Fantasy Gaming Draft to be coming. Biff versus Chappers 2021. Where's it going to take us? Nobody knows, but it's going to be interesting. Nothing more for us to say apart from thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.